There were 2 of us when I left, but when I came back, the hotel claimed we never existed. Nina never believed in ghost stories. Those belonged in paperbacks and late-night podcasts. She and her father, Lawrence, were just passing through a sleepy town on a cross-country road trip, hunting roadside diners and vintage bookstores. But when they pulled into the ivy-draped Red Pine Lodge that evening, she had no idea she'd be checking into a place that might not exist by morning. The sun was melting into the horizon when Nina parked the car. The lodge looked like something from a travel magazine. Timber walls, flower boxes, a porch glowing with amber lanterns. Lawrence, ever the adventurer despite his age, was quieter than usual, pale and lethargic. He waved off Nina's concern with a faint smile. Just a little tired, probably the gas station coffee. Room 312 was cosy and tucked at the end of a dim hallway. Lawrence sank into the bed with a relieved groan. Nina hovered beside him, unconvinced. "I'll run to the pharmacy. You need anything besides the aspirin?" He shook his head. "Just be quick, kiddo." She ran. She remembered the crunch of gravel, the cool breeze, the yellow lights flickering above the empty sidewalk. The pharmacy was barely 5 blocks away. She couldn't have been gone more than 20 minutes. But when she came back, everything had changed. The Red Pine Lodge's lobby should have felt familiar. Instead, it was like walking into a different world. The warm wood-panelled charm was gone. The space was brighter, sterile. Behind the desk stood a sharply dressed man with a stiff smile. "Welcome to the Red Pine. Checking in?" Nina frowned. "I'm already checked in. Room 312. My father's resting. He's sick. I just stepped out to grab his meds." His smile stiffened. "Room 312? He typed something into the computer. His eyes flicked up. "I'm sorry, but that room isn't occupied. Are you sure this is the right hotel?" Nina's chest tightened. "Yes, Red Pine Lodge. We arrived just before sunset. I have the key card, look." She fumbled in her pocket, pulling out the small plastic card. The logo was different now. The name printed across it, Red Pine Suites. "That's not one of ours." "What are you talking about?" she snapped. "My father is upstairs. He's sick, please." A woman in a dark blazer emerged from the office. "Is there a problem?" "She's claiming someone is in a room that isn't registered," the man muttered. The woman turned to Nina with calm authority. "Can we confirm your name?" "Nina Caldwell. My dad's name is Lawrence." She typed. "Nothing under either name." Nina's voice rose. "We were just here. Please check your cameras. You'll see us walk in." The woman hesitated. "Follow me." The security room smelled like printer toner and burnt coffee. Nina leaned over as the woman queued up the footage. There she was, clear as day. She and Lawrence entering the lodge, smiling, travel-worn. Nina exhaled sharply, then static. The image warped, jumped, and resumed with a different family entering hours later. The woman leaned back, visibly unsettled. "That's not normal." "You see us, right?" Nina said, voice trembling. She nodded slowly. "Let's go take a look upstairs." They climbed the staircase in silence. The hallway was pristine and oddly modern, fresh paint, brighter lights. Room 312 looked different too. New door, different number plate. The woman knocked. "Anyone inside?" No response. She unlocked the door and stepped in. Nina froze. The room was all wrong. Gone were the cabin-style furnishings and muted tones. This was a sleek, corporate-looking space. White walls, silver lamps, a single abstract painting. No sign of her father. No luggage, no half-empty water bottle. "Where is he?" Nina whispered. The woman checked the bathroom, the closet. Nothing. Then Nina spotted something on the desk. A wooden box, small, dusty. She opened it. Inside were faded photographs. One made her knees buckle. A man who looked exactly like Lawrence standing in front of the lodge, only it was older. A wooden sign hung above the entrance. Red Pine Inn, written on the back of the photo, Lawrence C. June 1978. Nina turned to the woman, who had gone ghost pale. "That's my dad. That's him." "This lodge has stories," the woman admitted. "Local legend says it's built on some kind of fault, not geological, temporal. People vanish or appear out of nowhere." "He's not a legend, he's my family," Nina snapped. The woman nodded. "Let's keep looking." They explored every floor. Hallways led to places that shouldn't exist. A janitor's closet opened into a library. A storage room had a mirror that didn't reflect Nina's face. Then they found a locked door behind the laundry chute. Inside, an old service stairwell. It led to a space not on any blueprint. Dust, cobwebs, silence, and in the corner, an old recliner, a reading lamp, and someone sitting in the shadows. "Dad?" The figure stirred, a rasping voice. "Nina?" She ran forward. He looked older, years older, but it was him. "They wouldn't let me leave," Lawrence whispered. "I heard you calling, but the rooms kept changing." Nina grabbed his hand. "We're leaving, now." The stairwell twisted and warped behind them, but they ran, stumbling through doors until they burst back into the lobby. The next morning, room 312 was gone. No record, no guest files. The receptionist on duty had never seen Nina before. The box with the photo had vanished. But Lawrence was still with her, a little greyer, a little quieter. He didn't remember everything, but he remembered her. Sometimes when they stop at motels off long highways, Nina catches her own reflection lingering too long in the mirror, or hears her name echo down an empty hallway. And she wonders if part of the red pine is still with her, or if she never really left. If the disappearing hotel room gave you chills, subscribe now and keep the hallway lights on.
They knock just after dark. They look like children, but their eyes are wrong. And if you open the door, you might not get to close it again. In the quiet town of Merowick, tucked between rolling hills and fog-draped forests, stories weren't just entertainment. They were warnings. Tales of strange lights in the woods, a woman who walked barefoot through the cemetery at night, the boy who vanished near the quarry. Everyone in Merowick had heard them, but there was one story that never faded, one that made people check their locks twice at dusk. The legend of the black-eyed children. It began in the early 1990s with a single letter to the Merowick Herald. A man claimed 2 children knocked at his door one night, asking to use the phone. They wore outdated clothing, spoke too calmly, and never blinked. But the thing that froze him in place were their eyes, completely black, with no whites or irises at all. Like staring into a pit that wasn't empty, he wrote. The town laughed it off. Just a Halloween prank. Kids in costume. A bored mind. But then came the second letter. And a third. Soon, reports trickled in from all corners of Merowick. A widow on the edge of town, Mrs. Hargrove, told a neighbor in hushed tones, "They were standing in my yard. Just standing. Their skin was so pale, and their eyes were black holes. I didn't answer the door. I just hid." A young boy named Jamie swore a girl knocked on his bedroom window at midnight. "She just looked at me," he said, eyes wide. "I couldn't move. I thought if I blinked, she'd be inside." As more stories emerged, fear crept in like the early frost. Doors were locked before sunset. Curtains drawn. Parents warned their children, "Don't answer knocks at night." Not even for other kids. But fear has a strange way of breeding fascination, especially for outsiders. That's when Evan Locke arrived in town. A travel writer known for chasing unsolved mysteries and haunted legends. Evan had built a modest reputation on fringe magazines and podcasts. Merowick's whispers of black-eyed visitors were exactly the kind of folklore he thrived on. He rented a tiny room above the general store and introduced himself as a story collector. Most residents were polite but cautious. Merowick didn't like outsiders. Still, some warmed to him, especially the older folk who still remembered the first sightings. Evan recorded interviews, filled notebooks with descriptions, and even sketched faces based on what people remembered. The details were always the same. Young, pale children with blank, pit-like eyes and calm, flat voices. Always appearing at dusk. Always asking the same thing. Can we come in? No one had ever said yes. And maybe that's why the legend had no ending. Just folklore. Evan mused one evening in the cafe. The consistency is fascinating. It's like a shared hallucination. Mrs. Hargrove leaned over her tea. You think it's a game, Mr. Locke. But some doors are locked for a reason. He smiled politely. Then maybe I'll just peek through the keyhole. That night, he packed a thermos, his camera, flashlight, and notebook, and headed to Ashbrook Park, the last known sighting location. The park was mostly overgrown, the swing set rusted, and the trees looming like crooked sentries. Evan set up under the largest oak, flipping through his notes beneath the glow of a camping lantern. The forest was still, too still. By 2 a.m., the temperature had dropped. The wind had died. Even the crickets were silent. Then, rustling. Not the wind. Not animals. Footsteps. Evan looked up. 2 figures stood at the edge of the clearing. Children. A boy and a girl, no older than 9. Their skin glowed faintly in the moonlight, smooth and pale like wax. They didn't move. Hello. Evan called, standing slowly. Are you lost? They stepped forward in unison. That's when he saw them clearly. Their eyes. Not dark. Not shadowed. Just black. Glossy. Reflecting nothing. His mouth went dry. The girl tilted her head. Can we come in? She asked. Her voice was soft, but it cut through the cold air like a razor. Calm. Toneless. Evan felt the fear before he could name it. Something primal twisted in his gut. Every instinct screamed. Run. But he couldn't. His legs wouldn't move. The boy spoke next. We're cold. Just for a moment. Please. Evan managed to whisper. No. You can't come in. They stared at him. No change in expression. Just the same smooth, unreadable faces. Then they turned and walked silently into the forest, swallowed by the dark. Evan stood frozen for several minutes after they vanished, the air still thick with the weight of their presence. When he finally moved, it was as if something had been uncoiled from around his chest. He packed up his things, every motion trembling. His camera lens was cracked. His recorder, blank. It was like they had erased themselves from everything but him. He left Merriwick before sunrise. Evan never returned. He wrote a brief blog post under his pseudonym, recounting the encounter, but he never followed up. His usual YouTube upload stopped. His last tweet simply read, They weren't human. Back in Merriwick, the stories continued. Every October, there are new reports. Soft knocking at the door. A child's voice asking to come inside. No one answers anymore, because now they know. It's not a test. It's an invitation. And once they're in, they don't leave. If the black-eyed children gave you chills, hit subscribe, and remember, never open the door after dark. They say the painting survives every fire. But what no one tells you is what happens once the crying stops. I never gave much thought to cursed objects. That sort of thing belonged in movies and museum gift shops. But curiosity, stupid, innocent curiosity, has a way of cracking open doors best left shut. I only wanted to decorate my new home with something interesting, something with a story. What I got was a story I can never forget. I had just moved into a weathered old cottage on the outskirts of Whitford Hollow, a sleepy town with more sheep than people and a population that treated outsiders with wary politeness. The house had been sitting empty for years. Its crooked chimney, ivy-streaked walls, and warped wooden floors gave it a kind of antique charm. I thought it was perfect. One wall in the living room was crying out for something unique. That's when I remembered a bizarre article I'd read long ago, about a painting called The Crying Boy. Supposedly cursed, it had survived dozens of house fires in the UK during the 1980s, untouched and unharmed while entire homes were reduced to soot and rubble. It sounded like urban legend nonsense, but I tracked down a print online anyway, out of curiosity more than belief. When it arrived, I felt a chill just holding it. The boy in the painting was maybe 6 or 7, with huge mournful eyes and tear-streaked cheeks. There was something raw in his sadness, something unfinished. I hung it up thinking it would spark conversation. Instead, it started a nightmare. The first few days were uneventful. The house creaked at night, but that was normal. Then came the dreams. Thick gray smoke. Not fire, just smoke, rolling through endless hallways I didn't recognize. I'd wake coughing, throat dry, skin clammy. I blamed the old insulation. Then the flickering started. Candles would sputter out while the windows were closed. The thermostat read normal, but there was always a chill in the room with the painting. My cat, Maisie, began avoiding the living room altogether. Once, I caught her growling low at the wall beneath the painting. Hackles raised, eyes fixed on something I couldn't see. Then came the crying. It started faint, like wind whistling through a crack in the window. But it wasn't wind. It was wet, gasping, childlike. I paused my music. Listen, nothing. Then it happened again and again. One night, while reading under a blanket, I looked up and saw the boy's eyes following me. They always had a sad look, but this time it felt personal. I blinked and swore I saw his lips part slightly, as though whispering. The power went out. Just like that. Total blackness. In the glow of my phone light, the painting seemed to breathe. Shadows curled around its frame. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I dove into research. The painting was attributed to Bruno Amadio, an Italian artist who painted war orphans under the name Giovanni Bragolin. The boy was rumored to be a real orphan from Madrid who died in a tragic fire soon after being painted. But the strange part was what came next. Firefighters claimed the painting was often found completely intact after devastating blazes. Some saw it as cursed. Others thought it absorbed tragedy like a sponge. Either way, families who hung it often experienced bad luck, or worse. There were cases of unexplained fires, sudden illnesses, even suicides. But the boy's expression in every version of the print never changed, until I saw it with my own eyes. That night, I awoke to a crushing weight on my chest. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. The crying was louder now, right next to my ear. Then I heard it, a faint voice, childlike but distorted, like it was underwater. "Help me." I gasped and sat up. The room was freezing. My bedroom door was wide open. The painting was no longer on the living room wall. I found it in the hallway, leaned against the wall like someone had placed it there. I hadn't touched it. Hands shaking, I dragged it out to the shed and placed it face down. The crying stopped instantly, like flipping a switch. The next morning, I drove the painting to a donation center 2 towns over and left it without a second thought. The house felt warmer. The nightmares stopped. Even Maisie returned to the living room. I thought I was free, until 3 nights later, when someone knocked on the front door. Not loudly, not threatening, just softly, slowly, rhythmic. I looked through the peephole. No one, just the gravel driveway and the yellow glow of the porch light. But something was wrong. When I turned around, I noticed it. A dry patch on the wall where the painting had hung. It was too perfect, the exact shape, like the house remembered it. That night, as I tried to sleep, I heard it again. Not crying this time, just breathing. Close, slow. Then a whisper that threaded itself directly into my thoughts. "You gave me away, but I'm still watching." If the crying boy gave you chills, just wait until you hear what's hiding behind the mirror in Story 4. Subscribe now, before something follows you home. The last transmission said, "All crew dead, must be the cargo." Then silence. But some things are better left lost at sea. Ghost ships aren't supposed to exist anymore. Not in the age of satellites, sonar, and global tracking. But the sea doesn't follow rules. And sometimes, something breaks through, a whisper from the deep. I'd heard the legend since I was a kid. A ship called the SS Ourang Medan, found adrift with its crew dead, faces twisted in agony, arms outstretched like they were fending off something no one could see. They said it was a myth. But that didn't stop me from spending the last 5 years trying to prove it was real. We were off the coast of Sumatra, somewhere in the choppy waters of the Strait of Malacca. I stood at the rail of the research vessel Endeavour, eyes scanning the fog-heavy horizon. The sun was bleeding orange into the sea behind us. My name is Daniel Crow, a marine historian turned paranormal investigator. It sounds absurd when I say it out loud, but everything about this expedition felt absurd. A distress signal, possibly faked, definitely ancient, was picked up by a decommissioned Navy relay buoy 6 weeks ago. The message matched the wording of the legendary Ourang Medan call. All crew dead. Must be the cargo. It wasn't just similar. It was identical. Captain Harris, a pragmatic man with 30 years at sea, didn't believe a word of it. But the funding was good, and I promised him a quiet run with decent hazard pay. Now, as we drifted in the growing dark, fog pressing in like a slow-closing fist, I wasn't so sure we'd made a good deal. The crew, 8 of us in total, a mix of hardened seafarers and young academics, were unusually quiet. Nobody joked. Nobody even played music. The air felt dense, as if the ocean was holding its breath. The radar blipped at 22:47. A slow-moving object, bearing northeast, roughly 1.5 nautical miles ahead. Could be driftwood, someone said. But it wasn't. We approached carefully. The hull emerged from the mist like a memory being dredged up. Rust streaked the metal like tears. Parts of the upper deck had collapsed inward, and the ship's name, Ourang Medan, was barely legible beneath the layers of decay. Jesus Christ, whispered one of the interns, Jamie. It's real. The crew gathered at the port side, staring in silence. No movement, no lights, no sound except the sea lapping gently at the lifeless hull. We suited up. Life vests, comms, breathing masks. I tried to swallow my fear and focused on documenting everything. Camera rolling as we climbed the rope ladder and stepped aboard history, or madness. The deck groaned beneath our boots. The bodies were just where the legends said they'd be. Some curled up like they'd died in agony. Others sprawled mid-stride, eyes wide open, lips pulled back in silent screams. They looked fossilized, as if time had forgotten them. No sign of trauma, muttered Dr. Lin, our biologist. No wounds, no blood. Something killed them, I said. Something they saw. The further we moved in, the worse it got. The bridge was shattered, but intact enough to confirm there was no crew alive. We found a torn logbook soaked with moisture, entries ending mid-sentence in jagged handwriting. The final page read simply, "It watches from the hold." My blood ran cold. Then we heard it. A hum, low and resonant, like a tuning fork vibrating in bone. We all paused. Is that machinery? Jamie asked. No power source left, Harris replied. That's not the engine. We followed the sound, toward the lower decks, to the cargo hold. The smell was overpowering, metallic and earthy, like blood and wet iron. The whole door was rusted but gave way under pressure. Inside, stacked beneath torn tarps, were sealed metal containers, unmarked and thick with corrosion. One had been forced open. Inside was nothing. Or maybe something once was there. Whatever it was, it had left scorched marks along the interior. Dr. Lin stepped back. We need to leave. Now. I agree, Captain Harris said quickly. Whatever was stored here, it's not safe. Could be chemical. Or worse. I hesitated. Something inside me wanted to stay. Not out of bravery, compulsion. I stepped closer to the open crate. The humming intensified. Suddenly, a scream. Jamie bolted from the hold, eyes wild. They're alive, the crew. They were moving. But when we followed, the bodies hadn't moved an inch. Still dead. Still twisted. The ship shuddered beneath our feet. Then came the roar. A deep, thunderous blast from the engine room. Long dead, yet somehow awake. Then flame. It spread fast. Unnaturally fast. Fire burst through vents, licked across steel walls. We're abandoning, Harris yelled, grabbing Jamie and pushing her toward the rope ladder. But I didn't move. Something in the cargo hold glowed now. Deep red, like an ember in the dark. I stepped toward it, just a few more feet, and then a shape, standing inside the open container. It looked like a man, or maybe what used to be a man, emaciated, staring through me with empty sockets. Its jaw unhinged slowly, too wide. Daniel. Harris's voice snapped me out of it. I ran. I don't remember climbing. Just the air, the heat, the Endeavor pulling away as the Ourang Medan burst apart behind us in a fireball that painted the sky in orange and black. We radioed for assistance. Told the authorities we found a derelict vessel that caught fire before we could identify it. No one asked questions. No one wanted to. Later, in the quiet of my cabin, I replayed the footage. The deck. The cargo. The humming. But the part where I saw the thing in the container? Gone. Corrupted. Jamie refuses to talk about it. Dr. Lin resigned the next day. Captain Harris stopped answering my emails altogether. But I know what I saw. And sometimes, when I lay awake on quiet nights, I feel that same hum in my skull, like something ancient and unfinished still watches from the deep, waiting. The ocean keeps its secrets. But if you want more haunted history, hit subscribe, and be careful what you go looking for. Some ships were lost for a reason.